Hello and welcome once again to the How Long to Beat podcast. I'm Rick and I'm pleased to have you all here on what is our 2-year anniversary, almost to the day. Or should that be Mativersary? Because as well as Alex
Hey.
and Paola,
Again.
who is muted again, we are also joined again by Matt, aka Cock, friend of the podcast, and someone you may remember from episode 56, almost a year ago. We were saying, welcome back once again, Matt. How you doing?
I'm fine. The Roach Man has returned.
Yes.
There you are. Episode title sorted right there. So we're gonna dispense with the normal sort of getting to know you segment. If you want to hear that again from Matt, episode 56 is what you're looking for. So we're going to launch straight into what we've all been eating, retiring, playing. Matt has brought us a topic this week. Give us an elevator pitch for that topic, Matt.
We're gonna talk about fears and specifically about phobias linked to video games.
In this, the spookiest of seasons. And then we're going to roll into Guess the Game, where the aim of the game is to guess the guest's game. And we're going to finish out with everyone's favourite, How long to beat the game. Matt, what do you think I think you've been playing this week? In context again. Do you want to start by telling us about Dadish?
I was kind of thinking you would point this out, yeah. Yeah, I did play Dadish because it's free on mobile, so I figured might as well give it a look since you've been raving about it. And it is fine. It is a solid platformer. You can't really complain much there. And it gets bonus points from me for the opossum character. That's a dope one. But it's not anything that I'm gonna be thinking a lot about or gonna be coming back to, I don't think. It's good though. What I've been really playing though, there's this really unknown little indie game called Stray. You might have heard of it. It's the cat simulator. I've been playing that. And I'm not even that kind of a cat guy. I wasn't even planning on playing it this soon after release, but coincidences happened, and so I was struck with this on my backlog. And I'm actually, it did succeed my expectations, I guess. Not really in terms of gameplay, but in terms of atmosphere and presentation. It was amazing, in my opinion, both visually and also with the soundtrack. Those two went hand in hand so goddamn well. I'm still listening to the soundtrack, which has stuck with me way more than the actual game, though. The game itself is still good, especially after you actually get out of the first environment. There are a handful of distinct environments that you go from throughout the game, and the first one can get very repetitive, in my opinion, because it is mostly just simple fetch quests, I guess. There's a bit more variety, though, later on with individual game mechanics that are only linked to specific environments, so there is, that variety. It's a pretty good game. A way better game, though, in my opinion, is Ninja Gaiden 2 on the NES, the sequel to the infamously hard platformer Ninja Gaiden. I played the original Ninja Gaiden last year, which was, I would call it a 10 out of 10 platformer if it wasn't for the boss fights, which I honestly despise. And I have no shame in using save states for those boss fights, but the platforming itself is like every level is perfectly like constructed, in my opinion. There is bullshit, but it's always intentionally planned bullshit. There's no random nonsense or anything. Every single screen has the strategy to go through. And after playing the first one last year, I had fun, but I was exhausted as fuck, and I was scared to tackle the second one. So I waited pretty much a full year to get to the second game, which I finally played this month, and it was pretty much the same experience. It's pretty dang brutal. as expected, and it can be exhausting to play. But it is honestly surprisingly, both of those games are surprisingly forgiving when it comes to setbacks after death. I always thought, back in the days before I played those games, I always thought Ninja Gaiden would be unfair bullshit because that's like it sounds like that when people talk about it, but it's actually very fair when it comes to that. Up until the final boss fight, that's always where it gets completely off the rails and punishes you after every failure so hard.
That's where the developer's like, you can't beat it too fast.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. And I went into it actually expecting to use save states way earlier, just for my own sanity, but I ended up not using a single save state up until the last boss fight, and that's where I used them without shame because, like I said, that's just where the game completely goes off the rails with unfair punishment, and it's basically the same thing as with the first game, where I say it's pretty much a 10 out of 10 platformer, except for the boss fights. Those make for dope visuals, but gameplay-wise, I do not like them at all. I also played this funny little game called Crazy Chicken Extreme, released on PC earlier this year. The Crazy Chicken franchise is a the Crazy Chicken
That's a great
franchise.
sentence.
Oh god.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, no, there's some culture here. There's this German culture, German gaming culture. The Crazy Chicken franchise is a long-lasting arcade game shooter franchise. The original title is Moorhuhn, which is just a kind of bird. And I don't know if anybody like outside of Germany knows these things, but this Moorhuhn gaming franchise was originally in the 90s a way to it was a marketing scheme for some kind of whiskey brand where people in the pub could play the shooter game on a borrowed laptop, but it was so popular that it eventually got its home release, and somehow it garnered like 3 million sequels and spin-offs. It went outside the shooter genre. I mean, it was basically like Duck Hunt, the original game. That's it. And it went outside of that. It developed like platforming games and kart racing games and every single niche shovelware genre that you could think of. And for some reason, this year they released this huge Crazy Chicken Extreme game that went back to the basics, but with a fancy new shine to it and whatever. And I
3
got
whole dimensions.
Yeah, it's also just 3 different screens where you shoot these birds, duck hunt style, and they want $15 for it, which is not really appropriate in my opinion. I guess you're just paying for the great brand name. And I played that for like an hour, losing my mind trying to unlock all the levels because you have to reach like a certain amount of points. And when I finally got that, I just closed the game forever. And that's my experience with Crazy Chicken Extreme.
Can I, before we move on, can I just read the Steam description for this game?
Yeah.
Just for the audience's benefit. Bang! Poom poom! Blam! Boom! Hunt mischievous moorhoons across a mystical campsite in the forest, shooting them down in the old walls of a knight's castle, or put your marksmanship to the test in medieval marketplace. If a wild chicken gets in a line of fire, blast it with a shot. That is literally all 3 of the levels, yes. Blast it with a shotgun, rocket launcher, or chicken hammer, whatever the fuck one of those is. And then it goes on and on.
What, you don't know a chicken hammer? Come on.
No, enlighten us, Matt. What is a chicken hammer?
You smack another chicken with it, and that's a chicken hammer.
It's funny too because this is pretty much shovelware level of quality, but the trailer is also partially cut like a Doom trailer, like trying to do this action thing, and there's a secret unlockable weapon that it's like the BFG in the final level, but it's so flat gameplay wise. It's crazy.
The big feathered gun, the BFG.
Nice. Okay, that's actually
you
pretty
should be
good.
The developer.
Yeah,
I should do that copy if nothing else.
Okay,
But yeah, that's mad.
fuck.
And I kind of want to play the kart racer now because I'm sure that's like a whole other level of dog shit.
I think there are like 5 different kart racers, and they are all dog shit.
There's
Berg shit.
11 games on How Long to Beat under the Crazy Chicken title, which is
Yeah, and that's
absurd.
Insane.
I think I added like a handful of them to the database, and there's genuinely probably reaching 100 different titles because there's so much shovelware with the name.
Hmm.
Oh my God.
Learn something new
Yeah,
every day.
Man, you
that-
weren't kidding when you said there was some culture to that. God damn.
that is genuinely German pop culture. Like that's a thing that people know here.
Nice.
All right, enough about chickens.
Yes, I agree.
I have 2 more games left. One is a very simple one. I've played Minesweeper a lot this year, and this month, after months of trying to get this done, I finally beat a Minesweeper field of a certain size. I'm using this mobile app, the cleanest Minesweeper or something like that. It's always the top result when you look for it, and they have difficulty settings, and I've been trying to clear the hardest difficulty setting for like half a year now. And earlier this year, I finally did that. To put that on record, the field is 576 fields big, out of which are 150 mines. It is
Okay.
significantly bigger than like the classic Microsoft Windows Minesweeper field.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm telling you that clearing that thing was one of the most exciting gaming experiences I had in a while. Like that was nerve-wracking to say the least. Good game though. I love Minesweeper.
Let's
And
So that's for anyone listening, that's 24 by 24
well,
grid size.
yeah. Well, to be exact, it was 32 by 18. That's how they did it.
Oh, so it's right. It's not a perfect
Yeah,
square.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's same result. And my final game that I've beaten recently, actually just yesterday, is Narcosis, the deep sea VR horror game that's on Steam, which my main takeaway is that it's jank as fuck. I don't think it was created initially for VR, but was turned into it, and I do believe it works better in VR than on a flat screen, just atmosphere-wise. But like I said, it's jank as fuck. I had a bunch of problems getting this to run smoothly, but somehow it managed to still be a great experience because it has so many good ideas in terms of psychological horror, the storytelling, and the deep sea setting that it actually managed to even out the glaring technical jank. And being in VR in the deep sea with fucked up creatures roaming around was actually something that messed with me, and probably something that fits well in the subject later on.
I was
I'm not
about to
going to
say,
talk more about that. Yeah.
like, it was funny because I was like, when we were talking originally about phobias, I was like, I don't have any phobias, but I think I lied. Like, hearing about this game, I'm like,
Yeah.
no, wait, no, I think that's it. I think that's the one. So I've got something to
Very
talk about
nice.
when we get down there.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, why don't I jump in now then? Because I only have one game that I beat this week, but
Yeah.
it was a big one. I've been playing this since like freaking July or something, or June. Or
It's been
July.
a couple of months for
Alright,
sure.
yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
months. Yeah, so I finally beat Ace Attorney Investigations 2 Prosecutor's Path. I have slightly complex thoughts on this one. So I really do like it. It's very good. But I also I think when I see like I hate using the discourse, but like when you look at online talk about this game, right? It's a lot of like people saying how like it's just like incredible. It's like a 10 out of 10 like masterpiece game. And I'm like, I think there's been a bit of selection bias here because anyone who's played this game means that they likely played the first game, enjoyed it enough to see it through. So anyone who didn't like the first game has already fucking noped out, right? Like there's probably a small number who like went through afterwards. Which leads me to think that this is guaranteed an overrated game. Like it's really good. It's not a masterpiece. And the reason I say that is that like I love the Ace Attorney games. You see my profile picture, go to the Discord. They're my favorite damn games. I love them so much. Miles is incredible. I think the character arc that Miles goes through in this is corny as shit, but endearing and like pretty true. Again, it's an Ace Attorney game, so expect there to be a lot of talk about truth and the law and its role and whatnot. And it's all like keep in mind, it's all not even close to any kind of reality, right? That's not why you need to be going into an Ace Attorney game for. It's a made up world of the law where the law is like, something that could be wielded for good or whatever. But obviously, the one thing I do like about the Ace Attorney games. Yeah, you're muted there, Rick, so I don't know if you're talking. Okay.
It didn't matter. I was being snarky. Forget that.
Okay. So all of this is just like, I'm just kind of setting up the context a little bit. Though what I do like about these games is that usually the villains are people who are like manipulating the law incorrectly and whatnot, which is kind of neat. Like it's usually people who are like there's usually someone in power who's like shitty. And I kind of like this idea where it's like, hey, look, we could take down the bad folk who are, in the positions and they shouldn't be, which it is a little bit of like bad appling the law a little, which I'm always like, all right, sure. That's what the problem is, individuals within the law. It's like, whatever. But that's just little political Alex talking. But my main, oh God, where the fuck am I going with this? There's so much in this game. My main issue is that these two games in particular are really long-winded compared to other Ace Attorney games. And that's fine. It's just like in the sense that like they're long. They're just really long compared to other Ace Attorney games. Like where some Ace Attorney games are like, I don't know, like let's see what like the first one even. He's gonna use the really handy how long to beat to figure out the times on here.
I thought all of these games were long.
No, they're not really though. The first Ace Attorney is 17 and a half hours, right? Most of them come in at around 20 hours. Investigations is 23 hours at best, and Investigations 2 is 35 fucking hours long. It's really fucking long. It's almost like 2 games in one game. And it mostly sells it because the story that it tells in this one is a very interesting story because the second one really delves into what is Miles' role as a prosecutor, right? What is the difference between a defense attorney and a prosecutor? And yet he does not ever prosecute in this game. So, it's a whole game about him being a prosecutor, but he's a detective in the entire game. And in both of them. So it sets out to investigate the role of a prosecutor without ever prosecuting, which is fucking weird. Like it's just fucking weird. I'm like, if you're going to make a game about prosecutors, why not let me just be a fucking prosecutor? Because you could actually make that interesting within the game. You could investigate and then go prosecute. But
albeit it would be very similar to actual Ace Attorney because it's just like
fine.
Another side of the same courtroom, which would be fine. Yes, granted, but
No, this game has ambitions. Okay, respect this.
But this is also what's weird about this game. They never, ever, ever say Phoenix Wright's name, and he talks about him a lot. Like he'll say like that one. No, he literally says like that. There's this one man who taught me the different, and like they're always hinting at at Phoenix, but they never mention him. It's like they're afraid if they mention Phoenix Wright in this game that people will be like, oh yeah, he's the protagonist, not this jackass. And you're like, no, we all love Miles Edgeworth. He's great. Like, he fully holds his own in this game and is like really fun to play as. And it just makes it feel, you know what it feels like? It feels like when you watch a show that doesn't have the rights to another show, or a show that can't hire the actors. So you see like the back of their head or something in a shot, and they're like, that's this guy. And you're like, that's not them, right? Which is extra confusing because you're like, you guys own that game. You could put Phoenix Wright in there if you wanted. Like, it's just a small cameo that, and it's not, the funny part is it's not even for the sake of it. It's actually relevant to the story. Like, Phoenix genuinely had a major impact on who Miles is, because that's the Miles we meet in this game is the Miles who has gone through a lot, like at least the first 3 games worth of character building. And he's really changing as a person. So yeah, I don't know. I was so set up to, I also kind of saw who the big baddie was coming, but I also don't think that's a flaw at all of the game. It just means like the game is like setting it up properly. And ultimately, they don't treat it like a big reveal anyway. They treat it more like an accumulation of the logic that you've gathered. Because I don't know, I sometimes see people talk about twists in game in like movies and stuff. And they're like, "Oh, I saw that coming," and I was like, "Well, yeah. If you didn't fucking see the twist coming a little bit, that probably means it's a shit twist, right? Like it's just like out of nowhere, you know." Like when you get the twist, it should make sense. And like when this twist came, it made perfect sense. Like it recontextualized parts of the game in satisfying and very logical ways that I was like, all right, I'm perfectly fine with this. This makes perfect sense. It was set up very well by the game. I just think that this game could have used an editor. Like there are a lot of moments where you're like, we didn't even need this investigation moment. We're relitigating things over and over again, and it could have been cut down significantly. And part of that reason I think it's so long is because they do an interesting thing in the third case. The third case in this game is way too bloated. And it's because you get to play as Edgeworth's father for parts of it, which is really cool. And it's like, and they do it in a neat way because you play Edgeworth's father's last case and it's relating back to the one that you're doing right now. I just wish they had trimmed things a little bit. There's like a bit too much flavor text going on in this one. Like, I get it. There are a lot of really fun characters from the Ace Attorney kind of universe that I love and hold dear, and a lot of them show up in this game. But like, they talk a lot sometimes to the point where you're like, you're like, okay, I get it. You can like chill out for a little bit. You know what I mean? So anyway, like it's still a 9 out of 10 for me. And it's like closer to like, I don't know, it's probably like 9.5 or whatever, you know, like it's almost perfect. It's just requires that editing. But like, if you're not like, I've always heard people say like, why was this never brought to the West? And I'm like, no, I know entirely why, because this is a game that unless you are a die-hard fan of Ace Attorney, you will not enjoy this game. Like you won't. Like it requires a lot of prior knowledge. It just really does.
And at that length, that translation effort's got to be gargantuan as well.
Oh, yeah. I have to say a huge thanks to the translators, because yeah, their translation work, it feels like a fully licensed translation. Like it feels like there is absolutely no indication that this was fan translated in any way, shape, or form. Like it is. I'm not sure. I just incredible.
Like when you're making the decision to bring it.
No.
Like a financial decision from the company. Like you often see this where fan translated efforts, because you're doing it on your own time and for the love of it. Mm-hmm. There's no rush. You do it right. You finish it when you finish it, sort of thing. And it's a whole different calculation, sort of thing. But yeah, no, there's loads like that where it feels like such a professional job. And I'd heard the Edgeworth one was like that, for sure.
Yeah, it's maybe the best fan translation I've ever seen. Like it's so huge.
Especially because they went above and beyond, because they got people to voice act the lines for the new characters.
Yeah. Oh damn! There's English voice acting in it as well.
Whoa! Hold on. For the objections and the holds
and hold it and stuff like that. But still,
that's still fun. That is like you say, that's above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the voices they picked, especially like for Angle Ray, like I wouldn't have picked any other voice for the guy. Like it was spot on with the personality.
Yeah. it's very great in that sense. Like, it feels like you're just playing the actual released version of it. But I'm fully confident this will never see the light of day in the West. I don't see it happening.
I am
Yeah.
so hopeful that you're wrong and we actually get a 2-pack with the first investigation and second
Yeah.
investigation game.
I mean, best case scenario, they just buy the translation from, but you probably couldn't because like it's such a huge team effort. But there's
More
a
trouble than
weird
it's worth,
legal
yeah.
gray area there where like, fans have done this, but then like, how do you legally actually acquire it? And they would still have to translate it on their own probably because like,
And also, how many people at that point have played it already that way and aren't bothered? I think it's similar to the Mother 3 situation where the quality of the fan translation almost guarantees that there will never be an official release.
And this is the thing too, where like this has been out for so long, right? Like so long, and because you look at something like the Great Ace Attorney, right? There was a situation wherein they release, they're like releasing this collection in the West. There were translations of the first game, but the second game wasn't finished when they released it. So like fan translation wise. So there you have a case of Capcom kind of actually getting out ahead of the curve a little bit, right?
Of course, because they stopped. I remember, Pauli, you were going to like play it and they'd cancelled the translation because that was coming.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So in this case, though, it's a little different because it's like, well, I mean, case in point, this is it. Like after playing this, I've now played every single Ace Attorney game, except for the arcade game that they have in Japan. There's like
I beg your pardon.
Yeah, there's an investigation. Arcade? There's an investigations arcade cabinet where you actually go and you investigate like crime scenes. It's a thing. You can look it up.
If anyone hears click clacking, that is my keyboard.
That's yeah. It's the only one that I've never played, but I've beaten all the rest. And so if I've beaten all of them, I'm their target market in the West. You know what I mean? Like I'm the motherfucker who's gonna buy their shit. I bought the Great Ace Attorney collection, so I'm like, who's gonna buy it? You put it out, and like maybe there'll be some interested folk, but I feel like your numbers are gonna be really low. Although realistically, I'd fucking buy it to just get more Ace Attorney. I'd be like, release more, but still, I don't know. I would prefer at this point that they just go make something new. This exists out there for those who want to play it. It's really easy to get because it's a DS game. I emulated it on my 3DS. Go to town. Did you find it, Rick?
Emulate it on your phone. It's
I
easy.
have to say,
I'm
like,
struggling. No.
Sorry.
I gotta say, like, it having a fan translation or like it having like it being released like so long ago is no indication of this game is never gonna get localized because I have 2 examples. First of all, Amnesia Ground and Later, the ones that I was in the team fan translating the game, actually got both a Switch release and a localization this year. Like last year it got the Switch release, this year got the, or was it? I don't know. The point is that game that it was a beta game, like from, I want to say like from the start of the beta life, got a re-release as a Switch game and then a fan translation. And then we have the other recent localization thing that is Chaos Head Noah. That is from the Science Adventure games. That's being said is Chaos Head, Steins Gate, Robotnik Notes, etc. The game is old as fuck. Like the original Chaos Head was released, I don't know when. It was the first Science Adventure games, and I think the Chaos Head Noah game was re-release was released for the 360, if I remember correctly. There was a fan effort to make a PC port out of it, and out of nowhere, out of left field, they announced both a PC port, a PlayStation and Switch port, I think, and a localization, and it is out now.
Yeah.
Years after the fact. So
the exceptions prove the rule, though. Like it happens, not likely to happen.
Let me put it this way. Because I totally agree with you. Of course, it's possible. I don't fucking know what Capcom wants to do, but I think the only way we see it is if they decide they're going to make a new game with Miles. Because otherwise, I just don't see much of the reason why they're going to put it out there. Especially with the series seemingly going in different directions, you know. because Miles hasn't really been in many of the Ace Attorney games in a long time.
Yeah, you have a point there because in the case of Chaos Head, they are bringing also I want to say final game, but I don't know if it's gonna be the final game for the Science Adventure series. And they're supposed to be joining like characters from all 3 branches of the narrative. So that could be the reason, for example.
Yeah, there's always some kind of marketing reason, right? I mean, these are big companies; they've got some kind of reason. But anyway, I still loved it. It was just long, and but I will not recommend this to you, Rick, because I remember I said maybe you could try these games. No, this is not the one for you.
No, you have to like Ace Attorney to really enjoy.
Yeah. I've accepted that the legal moon logic in that series just makes it not work for me. And
this one would drive you fucking nuts because the leaps of logic. Like, now that being said, the logic, they do logic play in here that's really fun, but like the loops they have to go through to like make it time sensitive. It's also just really funny because you have a bunch of like criminals confessing things outside of a courtroom, and you're like, where are their lawyers? It's just like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's this moments where it's like, anyway, but it doesn't matter. That's not what these games are about, right? The games are just about fun, legal battles and catching people contradictions and hearing that music kick in when you're like in the heat of it. And like, listen, I won't lie, when that music kicks in this game, I'm just like, fuck yeah. I'm like, that's right, motherfucker, I got you. You know, like, get ready to be.
There's one thing I can appreciate about this series. It is absolutely the soundtrack. The soundtrack. Hold up, for sure.
Oh, it's so good. I love them so much. I used them in like a film that I made, like a big fucking theater production, like feature film that I did. I like scored it with a bunch of Ace Attorney songs that no one recognized them except a couple people were like, shit, wasn't that from? And I'm like, yeah, it was.
This is the plot twist where one of Capcom's lawyers listens to this podcast.
Yeah.
They'll never be able to find that video. Yeah, I mean, they could actually no. They already make royalties off of it because when you upload it, it like they get it immediately. So anything that comes through,
go to Jen. Yeah,
that's how they do it. Anyway, Rick, why don't you regale us with your fucking massive list?
Yeah, so I again have been a busy bee. I've got 5 completions. The first of them is a bit of a parallel to Alex and Matt in that I've also been plugging away at one of my completions for like 6 months. And that is namely Risk of Rain 2, specifically the Survivors of the Void DLC. So I don't know if I've actually played, because we've all played Risk of Rain together in one capacity or another. The Survivors of the Void DLC came out in March. It expands the game in a few core ways. There's 2 new characters, one of whom you've unlocked from the start. There's various slight amendments to enemy configurations, enemy types, elite modifiers. There is also a new category of item called voided items, and they are like variations on a theme. So, for example, there's an item in the base game called Bustling Fungus, which when you stand still, rapidly heals you. There's a voided version of that item, which heals you when sprinting. But what it does is it corrupts all the Bustling Funguses in your inventory, so you can have one or the other, not both. There's a voided version of the ukulele that I try to avoid because it's not as good as the ukulele. And as anyone who's ever played Risk of Rain with me knows, it's not ukulele, it's mykulele.
Yeah, every time a ukulele appears, I just hear Rick, like he's got like a sixth sense for the ukuleles. Sometimes he doesn't even see it, and he's just like, ukulele!
I've got universal ukulele dibs, that's just fact. The other important thing that this game adds is a brand new end game. So there is a like ethereal shop in the game that you can sometimes access called the Bazaar Between Time or Bazaar Between Worlds, I forget. There is a secret entrance to the Void in the back of that place. There's a few ways you can access the Void. That's the most reliable way of doing it. If you clear that Void, that takes you to a brand new endgame area. And beyond that area, there's a new 3-stage endgame boss. It is no exaggeration to say that my brother and I, since this DLC came out in March, have been on and off, like, bashing our heads against the Void path, trying to complete it. And we hadn't played for a few weeks. And as of recording, the Wednesday, I think it was the 19th. Yes, it was Wednesday. We both had some free time. We said, well, we'll give it a go. We'll see how it goes. He played as Loader. I played as Rex. The run went perfectly. And we did it. I think we didn't really have a problem with the boss because we've got quite good synergy with that. So for anyone who's played the game, Loader is like a melee-focused character who builds up shield when he's attacking enemies, or when she's attacking enemies. So as long as you're on the offensive and hitting, which is easy to do with bosses, you generally speaking can out-heal any damage they give to you. Rex is a ranged character focused on weakening. He has ways of healing, and he can also kind of spam his secondary attack, which makes him very, very potent. And also, I managed to get an item which made my run really, really, really good. So most characters have a mobility skill on shift, playing on PC. Rex is pretty shit. It's like a little sort of force push forward. Like it's designed to like give you some area denial, but it's really ineffective. I picked up one called Shadow Flare, which makes you invincible and heals you for a period of time. It turns you into a little ball of shadow, so you can't attack, but it's really good at like getting you out of danger and building your health back up. I also picked up a red tier item, which gave me 3 of that skill and reduced its cooldown. So what I was able to do is spam my secondary, which takes a portion of my health, but allows you to use it unlimited, not on a cooldown, and then drop the Shadow Flares, heal back up, rinse and repeat and repeat and rinse. After that, it was plain sailing. I can't remember the last time I felt so euphoric hitting the end game of any game. Felt incredible. The game is phenomenal. The base game has always been phenomenal. The Void is like a dark purple gritty cherry on that cake. And if anyone's listening and likes the base game, I can't recommend the Void highly enough. It's added another sort of 30 hours or so of gameplay on top of like 40, 50 hours that we'd already played with the base game. It's really, really good. Enough of me gushing about Risk of Rain. You should all get it and we should all play it. In fact, you don't need to get it because my brother doesn't have it. You can actually play the Void content as long as one person has it and they're hosting.
Oh.
So there you go. In fact, to be fair, I think, Matt, we're playing Friday, aren't we?
We are.
With friend of the podcast, Abatage, and my brother. So maybe we'll play a Void campaign. We'll see.
Okay.
Right. Enough Risk of Rain. My next completion was Jack Move for the Switch. This is a little short and sweet solo effort RPG. Great game. Really knows what it's doing. It's like a 6-hour completion. I suppose the interesting thing from the perspective of playing it is that the game gives you a lot of options with combat. So there's a system called patching. So you have enough blocks to have like 4 or 5 abilities at any one time. But the most powerful abilities, the most powerful attacking abilities, and healing and other things, you can't fit it all in at the same time. So what you can do is you can use a turn to patch, and that's just switching your load out in real time. It's a really cool setup. You only really need to use it on the final boss, but that final boss battle was like a 20-25 minute fight that really tests your ability to work in and around that combat system. And I actually think it worked really well as a culmination of everything the game had done thus far. The aesthetic's wonderful. It's like a 32-bit, but a little bit brighter. It's almost 2D HD, but the background, like environmental design, is also the high fidelity pixel art rather than like 3D assets and polygons. The soundtrack, fantastic. Had it bouncing around in my head all day when I wasn't playing the game. There's not really any downsides to it. I think, if anything, it could have been a tad longer, but I actually like that it didn't try and pad itself out. And that was the feeling that I had going into it, and that's held through. So anyone who's played or been sort of pining for a shorter RPG experience, a cyberpunk world that doesn't have any unintentional bugs in it, it's one I can really, really easily recommend. And it's on all the platforms. I played it on Switch, but PC, Xbox, PlayStation, it's everywhere that you'd want to play it. What I wouldn't recommend is McDonald's Treasureland Adventure for Genesis.
Oh, come on.
So, no. So, no. It is an interesting piece of history in that it was like, alongside Gunstar Heroes, one of the first games Treasure ever released. And weirdly, there are kind of slight shades of Gunstar in this, despite how different a game it is. Outside of that curiosity and that piece of history, and for context, I am embarking on like a playthrough of everything Treasure have ever released, because that company is supposed to be coming back and releasing new games, but that company's gone. Treasure no longer exists, unfortunately. Whatever shell is there with its name is not the treasure that made those classic games. That's the only reason I even knew about this game, let alone elected to play it. It's also just a bit of a mind fuck as a piece of sort of corporate propaganda for a fast food chain that had their clown mascot and the Hamburglar and all the other weird like mascot creatures that existed at that place and time in the world. Outside of that, it's just not worth playing. Like, at best, it's a by the numbers platformer, like mascot platformer, with some slight inversions. So, for example, the boss battles involve you letting the boss absorb one of your energy pieces, one of your health points, and then attacking them while they're busy eating. And that's the same for every boss, albeit the bosses have slightly different setups. It's interesting the first time. It's fucking annoying on the final boss because the final boss is moving. It's like a Benny Hill sketch with Ronald McDonald and a lizard, because you've got three tiers of like revolving corridors with matching doors, and you go in one door, it pops you out of another door on a different level, and he only aims upwards to take your health. So you have to bide your time until he's pointing upwards and hope that A, you can get it to the point where you can eat your health in time, and B, hope that there's a door corresponding that can take you safely to the point where you can get the one hit point you're allowed of damage to do to him in time before he moves. It's just a fucking exercise in tedium and frustration. And that, in a lot of respects, goes for most of the game. I think if you really want to experience it, I would say play the first level, watch the rest on YouTube.
Yeah, I have to say, sorry. I have to say the sprite art looks fucking amazing. So many weird characters too. It actually looks interesting.
And I'll bet if you were playing high at the time, it would have been a hell of an experience. The sprite work is good, you're right. And the music's okay as well. But mechanically, at best, it's mediocre. At worst, it's quite frustrating. So outside of its place in history, it's really hard to justify spending even, the 90 minutes or so it's going to take to complete it. Yeah. I don't really have a good way to transition from that. Like
Kero Blaster.
It's great. Thank you. So Kero Blaster is a game by I'm going to get his name right, Daisuke Amayo, who is the man behind Cave Story. And this feels very, very similar, albeit the sprites are a lot bigger. It's a lot more zoomed in. So where Cave Story is a very expansive sort of frame as you're playing, and your character is tiny, exploring this big environment. Kero Blaster is you as a frog with a gun and eventually a jetpack, running through levels, killing like black goo. It's a lot more straightforward, but it does it really, really, really well. You feel quite floaty in a very similar way to Cave Story. Like Cave Story, it does the really cool thing where when you start shooting, it locks your orientation so you can strafe really easily. It's not a super long game. I have to say that the how long to beat times for it, I think, are a little bit inflated because it goes from like 4 to 9 hours. My first run I completed in just over 2 hours. So I don't know if maybe I'm having an easier time having played Cave Story and people are coming fresh to it and struggling. I don't know. It's not hard, but it's also not going to hold your hand either. There are moments where it will test your ability a little bit. Surprising amount of depth, both in terms of weapon and level variety. Really nice singular experience. There's definitely replay value there to play it again and complete sort of the minimal upgrade paths for things. Just a really good time. And I played it on Switch, and you can get it regularly on sale there. I think I paid like £3.50 for it. I think at that price, it's perfect. And I think even at full price, if you know you like Cave Story and you like that kind of experience, I think it's justifiable at that price. Had a really, really good time with that one. And equally had a very good time with my final completion, Castlevania The Adventure ReBirth, for the now defunct WiiWare service. So this is one I've been meaning to play for a while. Regular listeners will know a couple of months back I played Castlevania The Adventure via the Anniversary Collection. So that was the original Game Boy Castlevania game. Not a good game. Again, piece of history, but outright quite a bad game. What happened in the WiiWare era is M2 famed sort of port and remaster house, were tasked with remaking a few classic Castlevania properties. They remade, I think, the original Contra. They remade Gradius, and they remade Castlevania: The Adventure. Much better sprites, some ideas carried through, but to all intents and purposes, this is a brand new Castlevania game, and it delivers. So it's a really nice halfway house between the original Castlevania, which I know we're going to talk a bit more about when we come to playing, and like the initial Igavania, so like Circle of the Moon way. It's much more fluid, but you have a little bit of clunkiness. So you can change direction mid-air, which you couldn't previously in the original The Adventure. Stairs are similarly slightly awkward, but they're much better in terms of implementation. I can think of maybe once or twice where I felt like the stairs actively sabotaged me. It was much higher in the original. And a lot of the enemy design is a nice halfway house as well. So your Medusa heads and your leprechauns, some of the other trickier enemies felt challenging but fair in a way that the Adventure and original Castlevania, they just didn't. The original Castlevania in particular, obviously you guys remember from last week, fucking hated them. Was not happy with that. Did still abuse save states a little bit, mainly because I quite like to keep the cross all through on the classic Castlevanias because it makes the boss fights much more manageable. That said, definitely didn't feel necessary, and I'm pretty confident that you could do a run without save states. It's just I was emulating this because that's the only way you can get it nowadays, and you know, if it's there, you're much more tempted to use it. Really, really great, and among the best Dracula boss fights I think in any of these games. Really big fan of the way they played that out this time. So well worth dusting off an install of Dolphin to play this one. Nice piece of Castlevania history. One of the better sort of original Castlevania style games I think there are. Had a great time with it. I've waffled enough. Now, Paula, you've not completed anything this week, so if we bundle straight through to retirement, and if I can pull you back in for this, Matt, you've got a soft but potentially very controversial retirement. Do you want to touch on it quickly with us?
Well, both of my games are soft retirements, and I wouldn't dare to fully retire either of them. The first one, the one that you were alluding to, is Hollow Knight that I've been playing over the couple past months, which is a game that I've been kind of scared of for a long time because I do love the bug aesthetic, obviously. I love everything about that, but I'm not a big Metroidvania kind of person. Oh God, I'm seeing.
For listeners, I've just held up my Hollow Knight figurine because I'm very sad. I have a whole retinue of them sitting under my TV. Yeah.
I mean, listen. The only reason why I'm soft retiring this is because I want to get back to it when I have more time and brain power for it. Because it's for me, Metroidvanias especially are for me kind of exhausting mentally, and I'm at a point now in the game where I really have to dig for progression. I've already started looking up some hints recently, which I don't want to do too much, but you know, sometimes it just has to do. And yeah, I'm definitely going back to this, probably like not too far in the future either. But right now it just doesn't fit in the schedule, so to say.
It's a pretty big game too. Like I get it. I get why people bounce off of it. Like I find it's like perfection for me, but I also recognize the type of game it is, you know?
Yeah, exactly. There's so much going. Also, like Metroidvanias are dope, and the game does this genre pretty much perfectly. I would agree, but it's still a lot of running around, and once you like seen all dead ends that you perceive as dead ends, you do get like a lack of motivation, I guess, to really find something new. It can be difficult at points. I think that's just where I'm at right now a little bit. But I'm getting back to it. Also, I owe it to friend of the podcast Dune because he gifted me this game. I would never dare to disappoint him.
Yes, we mustn't.
And my other game that I've soft retired is called Eternal War: Shadows of Light, which is a Christian Quake mod shooter that I've stumbled upon earlier this year and I've been like plucking away at. And again, I don't want to disappoint the person that gifted this to me, God himself in the sky. No, but it's
I mean,
genuinely
God gifted us every game by His grace. He put the people who made them on this earth.
exactly. I find it funny that this is the second time I'm on the podcast, and again I'm talking about a Christian game.
That's
Kind of
true.
theme.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing.
But this is I read about this on the internet randomly. I don't know how, but the concept is basically that you are an angel sent by God into the disturbed mind of a depressed teenager to literally shoot the demons that are making him depressed. It's
God.
wild.
Could it be
And
society
I'm-
or is it demons?
Why not both?
Yeah, right.
But
Both is good.
it's I need to see this thing end. Even if it takes me years, I need to plug away at it until I see the finale of this. It's just such a wild concept.
Mm.
But again, doesn't fit in the schedule right now, so I'm gonna come back to this later. And that's all my retirement. So if anyone wants to volunteer
Well,
to continue.
Speaking of kind of probably coming back to, I sort of retired Lost in Random. I was actually thinking about this because I had it in my playing and I was like, I actually haven't played this all week. And like, you know how sometimes you play a game and you're like, there's nothing really wrong with it. I just no, and like that's how I feel with it. I don't know what it is. You know what the problem is, I think, and this is an on me thing, and this is a terrible habit, but like when it comes to Switch games, at least right now, I don't have a commute because my partner is off in another city for a month, and so I'm using kind of our car for everything. And usually I have a bus commute when I go like substituting and stuff. So my Switch is great for that. I can sit down and just play it. But when I don't have that commute, I tend to just plunk my ass in front of my TV and want to watch something while playing a game. So anything I play on my Switch has to be like borderline brainless or like kind of roguelite, you know what I mean? Where it's like I don't have to like focus on narrative. I can just focus purely on gameplay. This game has a narrative and there's a narrator who's like talking like all the time. And I'm like, this is not going to work. So I just kind of was like, I'm done. It's also like, I'm not like super impressed right now. Art style wise, extremely impressed. It's beautiful, like Tim Burton-esque looks or like Paranorman kind of style, like really beautiful, like claymation-esque look to it. But again, just like mechanically, it's feeling a little bit clunky at the moment. And so I'm just kind of like, maybe I'll come back to this later. Maybe when I've got, fucking commute and I'm just like, all right, I'll sit down and I'll pound this one out. But for now, 'tis on the retirement pile. And what about you, Rick? I've been hearing a lot about Rain World, so I'm curious about your thoughts on this one.
And it's interesting that you talk about, it's just not the right thing. And I think Rain World for me really is another wrong place, wrong time sort of situation for it. So Rain World is a pretty hardcore sort of minimalistic survival game, or at least that's the vibe I got from it in the short time I played with it. The aesthetic is really cool. Like it's flat 2D, but there's like a soft pixelation effect. And your character and some of the enemies, they move in a very fluid but also slightly ragdolly way. And the rain in this world is like all-consuming death. So if you get caught out in the rain, game over, man. So there's like an emphasis on exploring, but also getting the food you need and getting to somewhere of shelter in time to hibernate when the rain comes. There's definitely something there. To reiterate what I said, wrong place, wrong time. I just wasn't feeling it. So soft retirement's maybe a term for it. I think it's more a case of, for me, I've put it back onto the backlog,
Hmm.
leave it where it is for now. It's quite a big install as well. It's like for the game it's like 4 or 5 gigs, and I'm trying to clear some space on my SSD at the moment. So one of the things I'm doing with my PC games is trying to play a few of the bigger ones, and either yes, that's great, let's play it and then take it off, or not so hot, let's put it away and we can come back to it another time, kind of thing. And Rain World unfortunately fell on the latter side. One that I'm a lot less likely to ever come back to is Evoland, and this is my other retirement. So the concept behind Evoland, and there's 2 games, and it's quite topical because the combo pack has just gone free on Epic Games Store at the time of recording. The concept is RPG, but play through the history of RPG development and mechanics, which sounds great until you stop and think about it, because what that means is you're going to have to play through every quality of life improvement until you get it. Let me rephrase that. You're going to have to play without every single quality of life improvement for at least part of the game, and you're slowly going to claw those things back in. And that is a massive drawback. What you have when you strip away that gimmick is a really mediocre RPG that thinks it's way cleverer than it is. So there's loads of like little jokes, like just before I gave up on it, it was like the first proper dungeon, and you pick up a powered up sword that is not legally distinct from it, is just the asset of the Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII. And it says, you got a mega sword, and the caption is, looks familiar? Question mark. Like, oh, fuck you. Like, it's just not, it's not that smart.
It's a nice little gamer nugget. You don't appreciate it because you're not a real gamer.
No. I don't appreciate it because obviously I recognize it. Like that album in the ribs, like, Buster Sword? Yeah, you like, no, that's pandering.
Do you remember?
To the.
I remember.
There you go.
Better games as well, which is also part of the problem. Like, it's not a good game. It just has this gimmick. Now, the sequel is supposed to be better. I have both on Android, so I've deleted the original Evoland. I might give the sequel another go down the line, but I saw no reason to carry on playing the first game. And that's why that got retired.
Well,
again, yep, let's crack on. So there's no retirements from Paola. So let's go through to what we're playing. Now, do we give the guest the first go again, or do we give Paola the opportunity to jump in?
I think we go to Paola for now.
Let's do Paola.
The guest has spoken. Tell us about your playthroughs, Paola, this week.
The guest has spoken.
I defer to
Also has reached a conclusion. Oh no, Rick is broken.
It's all right. You keep talking. I'm just going to stay breaking.
Yeah, there you go.
Okie dokie. So, sorry, it's just too distracting.
I'll turn my camera off. You crack on.
Thank you. So, I'm still playing Pure Faded Memories. This time I did make some progress. So currently, I finished all of the Nicolas stuff, and now I'm into the second route, that is Janks. And the thing about it is that last time I said, oh, I could, like, for sake of continuity, play the route from Faded Memories and then continue on to the route of the sequel 1926. And the thing is, I can't, because I promised a friend that I would wait for her to have her copy, which, by the way, I have in my shelf somewhere. And so I have to wait until we meet up. I give her copy of the game, and then I can play 1926. So the game plan now is to finish all of Pure Fury, all the 6, 7-ish routes of the game, with all the corresponding endings. And then whenever we meet up with my friend, we just start playing the sequel. So that's the plan right now. Moving on to A Link to the Past. Well, I've done nothing. I don't know why the game is there, so let me remove that from the agenda real quick. The other game that I've been playing for the last month now is Guardian Tales. I haven't unlocked like anything new. There's currently an event. They're doing a crossover with the anime Slayers. I don't know if any of you have heard about it,
Is that
but they
no? That's Demon Slayer, the one with the guy in the green and black coat. Is that the same
yeah, that's
thing?
Demon Slayer. Slayers, I think the light novel started as like a D&D campaign gone places. And then the writer decided, hey, we had this very stupid adventure. How about I made a novel out of it?
And we make some money.
Or like, at least that's the thing that I've been hearing about it. I can't even find the information besides the rumors to corroborate it. But that's the thing that everyone says, like, oh, this is a D&D or a roleplay campaign gone places, and then they made the light novel, and then they made the manga and the anime about it. So there's 3 characters that are currently on the banner. 2 characters on the banner, one you get for free, and those are the protagonist, Rina and Gori, and one of the villains, which name I cannot remember for fuck's sake. And I got Rina and Gori because Gori is the free one. And I got so lucky with Rina because it was on my first temple, so it was like, hey, I'm not even mad. That's amazing. Now I'm trying to pull the weapon. And the character is extremely broken. It is totally meta. And I'm very happy about it because now the only thing I have to do is to farm those things to level her up and limit break her. And I only have so much time for it because once the banner is gone, I cannot get her. I cannot remember the name of the thing, but the things you use to rank the hero up.
I'm not gonna lie
Well,
to you.
hey, if you're running out of time, you could pay them some money and they'll let you have it.
I am not paying them
Damn.
money.
I was about to
Go
say,
freak.
I was like 10% of what you said sounded like a foreign like language to me. Like just like the different words. I'm like, oh man, the banners and all this stuff. It's good. But hey, it sounds like you're having fun. I'm realizing I'm getting old. I'm like the younger generation of like gaming with like all the gotcha stuff. I'm like, I don't understand any of it anymore. What's happening to me?
What do the kids see in this?
You know, I know. I mean, look, I get it. It sounds like something I would have become fully addicted to at some point if I touch it. So I'm not going near it because it sounds like you're having a good time, and I'm scared.
Oh my god. I think that's it for Guardian Tales. I'll just continue farming the materials for Rina. And for the Amo Bonito, the pretty monster, or Garam, which is the actual name of the character. Which, by the way, he's like the second strongest character in my entire team from all the characters that I pulled so far. So I might have gone a little bit overboard, like saving up stuff before actually getting the character. But I'm not even that mad. I'm just happy. So the other game that I played that is totally separated like from the gacha world, thankfully, is Pokemon White. I've eaten the first gym. I didn't have a lot of trouble with it, strangely enough. Only because I had a Pokemon that, first of all, could counter the type of the gym. In this case, since I got the Fire Starter, this gym was the Water Gym, because they pick a Pokemon that is strong against your starter. And I had a grass type that was Shroomish. And since I also had both effect sport, which means that any contact move don't do the Pokemon or like what that the Pokemon does, that means the other Pokemon can get a status condition, which is either, I think for FX sport is either sleep, paralyzed, or poisoned. Yeah, not burned in this case. And also I had nuts for the paralyzed thingy that, oh my god, I cannot remember the Pokemon moves. Someone can help. It's a move that I
None of
never
us can
use for
remember 'em, so
competitive.
you're good.
No, if it's paralyzed, shouldn't it be Spore? I think that's right.
Stun
Spore
Spore?
is for Stun Spore, that's the thing. Thank
Damn,
you.
I remembered it.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
well, never
Nice.
mind.
Yeah,
I guess I
never
know.
used it for competitive, so I don't remember the name of the move.
Yeah, see,
I
I
just
never
thought that
played
was like,
competitive.
oh, none of us
so
can remember those. Was like, oh yeah, I know the one.
I should have realized my Pokemon knowledge goes deep.
Lack of sleep is getting to me.
It'll do that.
Too much gotcha.
Like off topic completely, but I was up until 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, I don't know, because I was at a friend's house playing with 7 other players, a battle royale of 8 players, Mythos and Leyendas, or Myths and Legends, the card game I talked about last
Ah.
week. So if you play cards, any type of trading card game, play it as God intended, one-on-one, because
No.
battle royales take a fuck ton of time.
Yeah, I remember Magic playing Battle Royale. It's awesome. Yeah.
It is awesome, but it took us like 6 hours to resolve the match, and 2 of our players completely lost their sanity, my boyfriend included.
Yeah, I believe that.
Like, when will it end?
Mm.
But actually,
it-
speaking of never ending, you're back on the age, the age train.
Yeah, I am back into the Age of Empires 4 train. And I don't know why I was out like for so long. Oh, probably because time. Thank you, university. Thank you, real life. Thank you, being social. And
All terrible things.
Yeah.
terrible things. Yeah, absolutely.
Priorities, SMH.
And next week, I think. Is it this week or next week? But at the end of October, there's gonna be a very big update. Sorry, where they will add the Ottomans and the Malians finally, and the water rework, which means there's gonna be rock paper scissors mechanic to the chips. There's gonna be a complete rework on how some chips work, or how their stats are distributed. And there's gonna be, I think, 8 new maps in total. Some of them water, some of them land, some of them mixed. I'm very excited for it. So I'm preparing for the change of the season. I haven't played multiplayer because I was a bit rusty, so I started playing with a normal AI. Then with the hard AI, I'm yet to test my skills with the hardest AI.
It's crazy how fast the skills drop, eh? Like, it makes me realize how much these pro players play, because, like, I hear you. Like, you know, you play and then you get to a point where, like, you feel like you're just nailing it, and then all of a sudden you drop it for like a couple days and you come back and you're like, huh? What's the button? Like, with these
It
RTSs
happens.
in particular, you know?
Yeah, it happens a lot. The good things that I have good memory and what my build was, because like I practice it so many times that it's become like muscle memory at this point. The point is having my muscles do the thing fast. Like, that's the thing that I'm still failing at.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad because I was getting there, like, before dropping out of Age of Empires for a while. But anyway, expect more Age of Empires 4. Expect maybe Ottomans and Malians shenanigans. Expect me dragging my
Shamalians, if you
boyfriend
will.
back into the game. Oh no, what did you say, Rick?
Shimalians, if you will.
Sorry, all I was thinking was expect me when the clock tolls one. I just had a lot of Christmas Carol.
Or Ottomanigans.
Expect me at this. Expect me. My brain's broken today. Smash Brothers.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I played a
I'm a
little bit of
non-sector.
Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with my nephew during this weekend because I was taking care of him like a little bit during the week because of reasons. So we played some Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Uh-huh.
And let me say, Steve is so fucking annoying in Smash.
Oh, the Minecraft guy, right? That's it. Yeah.
The Minecraft
Minecraft
guy,
game,
yeah. I always say there's a place for a Steve because I don't know. That's a meme that's rose somewhere in my background at some point with my boyfriend that we always say there's always a place for a Steve. But I don't know, man. Steve from Minecraft and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, he can just put blocks whenever he wants. He just pulls like minecart out of nowhere and makes you like go off the screen. I'm so thankful my nephew still hasn't like discovered all the tricks Steve has, but he has practiced. And he told me, I practice this specific combo just so I can try to beat you. And it was like trying to put like the lava on the floor, and I don't know the rest of the combo really, but I play a character that uses a counter that is scoring, and he just grabs me with a fishing rod, and that negates the counter because you have to get hit to get the counter, and just puts a piston out of nowhere and fires me off the screen. Hopefully, I'm not rusty in Super Smash Bros., so I can get back really quickly.
Soon
But
the student
still,
becomes the
it's
master.
fucking annoying. The piston is annoying. The lava is okay, I guess. Like, I know the name in Spanish for the thing, but he just drops like this metal thing out of the sky, which
the
name I
minecarts?
always no, not the minecart. The thing you yeah.
Pickaxe?
Pickaxe.
No, not the pickaxe. The never mind.
Is
I will
it
find the
shaped
word.
like this?
It is shaped like this. And
The
that's
anvil?
it, absolutely.
The thing that you craft on top
Anvil,
of.
yeah.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No?
What was the name for
Yes?
it?
Anvil.
Anvil.
Anvil. Yeah, the anvil. Oh my
There.
god, that's a
Yes, we
word I
got
haven't
there.
heard of.
See,
That is a
nice.
really specific
That's a
word.
new
Yeah,
word
that's
for
fair.
me, actually.
It is, yeah.
That you never really ever need to use. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, like Steve is overall just a troll character, and I'm happy for it because there's my nephew just playing it, and if he's happy, I'm happy. But still, I don't like playing against it, especially since my nephew is getting better. So yeah, that's everything I got for the playing section. Matt, take us away now.
Just tell us about the ooey
Yeah.
gooey.
The what now?
Stop it.
You'll understand.
I think I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I've been playing the new horror game Scorn that released, I think earlier this month, which is, if you haven't seen the trailer or anything, it is a heavily visual experience, I would say. It's set in a world that's extremely based on artwork by H.R. Geiger and like Beksinski, if that means something to you. That's another like gloomy painter that gets shared around a lot online. And the trailer dropped this year, and it looked absolutely amazing because the entire world was so otherworldly and completely unrecognizable in terms of realism, if that makes sense. I've just rarely seen a video game that has such elaborate, outlandish world design. and it all is like dark, gloomy, veiny, fleshy, visceral disgustingness. And I was super, super hyped for it. It dropped on Game Pass immediately, so I got on it on day one pretty much, and I wasn't even sure what kind of gameplay I was gonna get. I was just in there for the visuals mostly, and the gameplay. I'm like 2 hours in. So far, it is mostly exploration-based puzzling,
Mm.
where you use the fleshiest, weirdest mechanics while you go through this visceral but also industrial nightmare world, trying to make your way through environments of decay and death and weird things going on. It's so strange visually that it actually messes with your or with my perception sometimes, because there is just nothing um familiar in the environment. Oftentimes it seems so strange, and all of that while never really repeating itself. It's not like they created a bunch of assets and placed them everywhere. Every single room seems legitimately crafted by hand, and that is incredibly impressive to me. The gameplay, the puzzles so far have been completely satisfying enough to keep me going. The vibe is all in all the strongest part still, and there have been, from where I've gotten so far, there have been a few enemy encounters as well by now, which, like, the creature designs alone are, as expected, completely original and disgusting and amazing. I love those. Um, but they have been used sparingly so far, and I do genuinely hope it stays sparingly. I do not want this game to become a full-on shooter, which I'm not sure yet if it will. The only weapon that I have so far isn't even a proper gun. It's more like um, a it's shaped like a pistol, but it shoots out a metal rod. Like a
Hydraulic
pump.
little thruster thing.
Yeah, like that sort of thing. It's not an actual bullet that like flies through the room or whatever. You have to
It's
be
like what they
actually
used to kill a
close.
cow, where they like just put it on its head and it goes.
Yeah, that sort of thing. That's actually a very good like example. Yeah, and I do, I do genuinely hope the focus stays more on the puzzling. If it does throughout the game, then this might be uh, a Game of the Year contender for me. But if it does eventually delve too much into the shooter or action stuff, that might break it for me eventually. So I'm very careful right now. But the first impression is genuinely amazing. After that, a game that I've been playing for a long time now is Phasmophobia, the mostly multiplayer ghost hunting game, which has been in early access for full 2 years now. It is still in early access. And I've been playing it for those full 2 years pretty much with several people on and off. Recently, I've been playing a lot with my friend Lala. Shout out to Lala. We call ourselves the Gilf Hunters because we we hunt the ghosts I like to find. That's why we call us the Gilf
I
Hunters.
like that.
It's just a dumb little inside joke that we started while playing this game. And
You ever play with
recently,
Tinky Winky Dipsy or Poe, or is it just Lala?
it's just Lala. That's the only one I care about.
The Teletubbies joke for anyone at home. If you know, you know.
Truly a very high IQ joke right there.
Hang on, I'll put something in the chat palace so you know what I'm talking about. Sorry, crack on, Matt. Ignore me.
Sure. Let me talk about horror while you talk about Teletubbies.
Which is another form of horror.
I guess
There is
yeah.
something horrific about the Teletubbies. It's true.
Yeah, I guess that's too much horror to me, though. For me, anyway, Phasmophobia has had One of the biggest updates this month, the Apocalypse update, it's called, which revamped the entire game visually and mostly mechanically, and added a few more maps. So we've been playing through the new additions and getting familiar with the new mechanics. 2 years in early access, there's still plenty of jank, but still such a fun game to, especially with friends, to go into haunted places and try to find the ghosts, try to capture evidence to figure out what kind of ghost it is. Sometimes you even have to talk to the ghost. Like the microphone is an essential part. You basically can't even play it without a microphone because you do have to talk to the ghost to get answers or to just get activity going or even get reactions through the spirit box, one of the essential items that you use. It's basically one of those ghost hunting TV shows like Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagans, but the ghosts are actually real and the hosts are not dude bro idiots, but you can die, and it can get really scary too, but it's also just really fun tactically, like in a tactical sense. Um, Probably gonna keep playing this until it's fully released and more. Like it's such a good replay game.
Nice.
Another game I've been playing is the original Castlevania, the NES version, although I'm playing the Steam re-release. I think you've talked about this. Like when Tiamat was on recently, he talked about Castlevania as well, I believe, because it is one of the game of the months on the How Long to Beat forums right now. Coincidentally, I was the one who nominated this game. Very happy that it won. I've probably been listening to Castlevania music for like 15 years now and loving it, but never touched a single game. So I'm pretty happy that I finally played a Castlevania this year, and I've put just an hour in. I've only had one play session so far, and got like a little bit over halfway through, I believe. I've not used save states, not really necessary yet.
Also, you didn't know they were there. Let's be
that.
real.
No, yeah, Rick and I have talked about this before. When I was done with my playing session, I wanted to save and like keep it to continue later, but I couldn't find the save state option in the Steam re-release because it's genuinely not. It's not on the Steam store mentioned at all. It's not really immediately in the game mentioned at all. There's a settings menu, but it's not like in the main menu or whatever. You don't see it. You just have to know how to open it. There is, however, like old school manuals that you can read. And in there, it also explains the mechanics of the re-release. But I just saw those manuals as like, here's a little nostalgic special feature. I didn't even like look into that.
Right.
Anyway, the problem is solved. I know how to use those quick saves now, and I will use them in the future. Mostly just to keep my progress saved so I can return to that. But I'm pretty much 100% sure that once, especially the boss fights ramp up, I'm gonna use those save states as sparingly as I can. But like atmosphere-wise and platforming-wise, it is quite a lot of fun. Though, since I'm coming from Ninja Gaiden 2 earlier this month, another NES platformer, it is like there are similarities in how it plays, just slower and clunkier. And that's a little bit of a tough transition, I feel like. But it is still like I'm still enjoying it, but still gonna truck along there, hopefully making it through to the end. And my final game that I'm playing right now is Grounded, the bug-sized survival game.
Honey, I Shrunk the
Also,
Game Pass. Yeah.
it's literally Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the survival game, which is, and I've said this on the forum before, I believe, literally, genuinely a dream game concept of mine that's finally become real. This game also has been in early access for at least 2 full years, and I've also been playing this in early access for all those 2 years, pretty much. I've put a lot of hours into this before it was even fully released, which it finally was last month. It is complete, it is beatable, the story is there. And again, my friend Lala and I, we've been playing this in co-op now. Um, we've since the full release is now there, it comes with the caveat that you have to redo story elements so that they actually count in your save game. So we've been kind of trucking through, repeating the first few dungeons. Luckily, we still have all of our items and upgrades. Like, none of that is lost, so it's not like a chore, really. We can get through these dungeons pretty quickly, thankfully. We don't actually start from zero, but it has been a little bit of work right now before we actually get into the fresh new bits. But the game itself, now that it's fully released, is gonna be my game of the year. I already know that because, like I said, it is a dream concept come true, and it is made so well as well. Being a bug-sized person, exploring this garden full of these different subsystems of insects and interacting with them and exploring little disgusting creepy holes in the ground, or like the trees and their like climbing up trees. There's even a goddamn pond you can actually dive in and explore, which is again probably a good thing for the subject later on, because was quite the experience for me. But yeah, Grounded, I freaking love this game. 10 out of 10 so far, and I haven't even beaten it. It's amazing. And that's all my playing games. So,
Nice.
Alex, Rick, who wants to go?
I would love you to go first, Alex, because we can talk about the Castlevania game that I would
True.
actually recommend you go to next, Matt, because it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
Sure.
I started Castlevania Order of Ecclesia because
AKA the best one.
Ecclesia.
Order of Ecclesia, I think is how it's
Ecclesia. I
pronounced,
think
yeah.
that's what I think they said it once in the game. And I was like, Ecclesia. Got to remember that. So I started this one up because I finished Investigations. I was like, well, fuck, I should play something else on my 3DS because I love this thing. And I was looking at the three of them to play, and I was like, because they're not related to each other, and I was just like, well, fuck, this is the one that Rick likes, so I'll try this one. That's basically why I did it. And so far, like at first, I was a little like, because it's very different than the other kind of Castlevanias, and at first I was a little like wary because I was like, oh my god, like there was a couple just like straight line areas, and I was like, are you for real? But then I started to see what it was doing, where it was like, okay, you're slowly building this town up, and like now there are different areas that are more expansive, and I'm like, okay, I'm feeling what this game's putting down now. Like I'm like, I see what's going on here. I like the main character. I think the fighting and the combat's great. There's like glyphs instead of, I don't know. There's always something in Castlevanias, right? That you like take
It's the Aria of Sorrow system, but it's slightly rejigged. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can like have different weapons, and then you can unlock different like sets that you can like change between and stuff. Right now I'm at the crab tower thing that's coming up. And what I like about, so like most Castlevania games, I think the best Castlevania games do this thing where like they're challenging, not hard, right? And like this game is very much that, where like the bosses at first, they're very unforgiving in the sense that they can clobber you really quickly, but they have very distinct patterns that after you play it for like a little bit, you're like, I got it. So like I died a couple times, but now I'm like, oh, I know my exact strategy for how to get up and past this thing now. And I like that. Like it feels like because I don't know, there's that weird balance you strike in a lot of games where it's like the bosses are just either too easy or just way too hard. And I feel like this is like walking a really nice line where I don't feel like I'm just like smoking the bosses like real quickly, but I also don't feel like I'm being like unfairly punished while playing them. So yeah, plus there's like this magnet thing you can use. It's pretty cool, and I like it. You know, fling your character all over the place. It's pretty fun. So yeah, it's a good game. It's fucking Castlevania. Like, I don't think I've yet to play on like the GBA and the DS a bad Castlevania game when it comes to like the 2D ones. They're really freaking fun. Some of them are stronger than others, but God, they're great. And I think
Circle of the Moon and Harmony are like 8 out of 10s ish. The other 4 are 10 out of 10 stone cold bangers.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think this one is probably a good entry point because it's a bit more linear at first. I think it actually lets you kind of understand the combat a little bit more, which I think is probably a strength to this one. Because, for instance, something like Harmony, which I started with, is a fucking nightmare. Like, I love it, but it is like what you were describing, Matt, about Hollow Knight. That times like 11. Like, it is jacked up so intensely as to like where the fuck do you go, and like you're like you need this one item that's way at the bottom of something. Anyway, I love it, but it's a rough one to start with. Anyway, this one's great. I'm excited to play more. I started playing Uwe. It has happened. I am playing Crusader Kings 3. I don't know what's going on. People are plotting to kill my sons. I think my wife died in childbirth, but I got a new wife now. And I'm slowly trying to take over Ireland.
Good for you.
So, you know, life's pretty good. I helped a dude go to war, but the other guy was way too strong, so I just let him die overseas while my army mobilized. And I was like, no, they're strong. I'm not helping you, but I will help you. I'll say I'm helping you, but I won't help you. And it worked. The game didn't mind. I still have no idea what's going on in this game. I genuinely, like, I'm playing the tutorial, and I still don't know what's happening. I have like a 40-minute video. There's like a 10-hour YouTube series for beginners of Crusader Kings 3 just to get you started, because it's that complicated. Now look, you can just play and not know what the fuck you're doing, and it's totally fine. But holy shit, there's a lot in this game. And I think I am going to learn, because there's like a Lord of the Rings mod for this where they've like completely, it's insane.
Yeah.
They've totally done it like with all of the kings, and now they've introduced like the southern realms and shit. So you can play like Gold Kings of Harad and stuff. I'm like, holy hell, that's amazing. So yeah, I'm going to try to learn how to do this so I can go play that later. Anyway, but speaking of Lord of the Rings, I'm on my huge Lord of the Rings fucking binge. You know, I'm in. This was my like nerd shit when I was a kid, and it's come back hard. You can thank Rings of Power for that. I was like, yes, give me more Lord of the Rings. Inject it into my veins.
Segue. What did you think of that show? Because I'm not really plugged into that as a franchise, but I've heard pretty negative things about the show. And obviously it's fucking everywhere because Amazon are advertising.
Let me put it this way. There's an extremely shitty community around Lord of the Rings. I love it to death, and there are a lot of really good people who really dig it. But, and here's a little fun fact, Lord of the Rings, because it is such a wonderful, huge, long-running thing, has fans of all types, and I mean all fucking types.
And you get enough people together, you're going to get some dickheads.
Yeah, but not even just that. But here's the extra element to it. Lord of the Rings is so loosely based off of like European mythologies, right? Like it takes its love from like Arthurian legends and like that kind of verse. So what happens when you get loose medieval history within it? Well, you get alt-right assholes. And so in Italy in particular, Lord of the Rings became this part of like the right wing, where like they became really obsessed with it because they took it as like a literal text of like this idea of like racial purity. It's fucked because they think that like with it. Yeah, exactly. Right. Even though like Tolkien's message is how like if we all, despite our differences, get along, things are great. But instead, the right's like, no, what his stories are about is that you have to stay like, you know, secluded and not allow anyone else in so that you maintain your racial purity. And I was like, how the fuck did you get that from this fucking story of like cooperation and fighting against the larger evil? You're the evil, idiots. But anyway, it's like, right? Like, oh, God damn it. It just drives me crazy. But anyway.
Is it a good show or not? Like,
No, you need this context first. You do need this context, actually, because there's a lot of that, right? And so I find that there is, and now don't get me wrong, like I find there is really, really wonderful, beautiful communities because all communities have this kind of shit, right? But I feel like you need to understand the slight alt-right-ness of part of the community who's in this, right? Whereas local communities, I find, for instance, I play like the wargaming. They're all a bunch of cool fucking dudes who are just chill, you know? And like, we like Lord of the Rings because it's fun, right? And they're like, and we like the themes and all that. But online, there is that element. And so what's interesting, because when the first Lord of the Rings came out, you had people who were like, and now, of course, the internet wasn't as widespread at this point, right? We're talking early 2000s. But still, at that time, you had motherfuckers coming on being like, oh, it's a bunch of like, they're like girl bossing Lord of the Rings or some shit, like complaining about the original fucking trilogy. Yeah, like people were whining and bitching about that. Now, it was easier to avoid because, again, a less online world. It still took time for people to accept it because it changed quite a bit. Now, we come to Rings of Power. You have a show with Warrior Galadriel, which, let me tell you, for a group of population who complains about like fucking left-wing people being really sensitive, boy, were there a lot of people who were sensitive to the idea of a lady who's not a perfect person and who has some character development and is kind of mean sometimes. God damn, man. I've heard so they're just like, oh, she's so terrible, like all this shit. And I'm just like, listen, you don't have to like her. You don't even have to like the show. But if you are this upset about a woman in a show who is kind of mean and like is having a hard time because she's going through a lot of grief and is like learning lessons along the way, I think you need to like take a second and think to yourself, why am I so angry about this? Again, if you want to be angry about it, fine. But like, it just feels weird, right? And then there's a lot of this complaining about, because like, again, it just, there's been a lot of complaining about the diversity within the show, right? And what's really been bothering me is that I'm seeing a lot of people. So, and because listen, I want to also be clear that I really gave people the benefit of the doubt with this. I talked with a lot of people about the show, trying to have, because I don't think it's a perfect show. The show has some slight pacing issues, I think. It withholds a lot of information. It asks a lot of the audience because it is withholding some stuff. I think if you really love Lord of the Rings, you're probably going to be a little more like unsure of some stuff because they're clearly saving things for later because they know they have 5 seasons. They have a guaranteed 5 seasons. Whereas
what is it because of the reception, or is there a 5-season deal?
It's Amazon has plans for Lord of the Rings. Like this is.
Oh damn! Okay.
Listen, the next couple decades, we're having a lot of Lord of the Rings, and I'm very happy. But yeah, it's a plan. Yeah, but here's the deal. If you're a casual enjoyer of Lord of the Rings, I think you will love this show. It's really good. Like, it's beautiful. Again, is it like? But again, some of my pacing issues might have been because I was watching it one episode at a time. I actually think this might be a show that benefits from the kind of binge experience in a lot of ways that the extended editions do. Because I think if you're not, by the way, actually, the 6th episode of this show is bar none one of the best fantasy segments I've ever seen. Probably the best, like, fucking television fantasy mode. It is the coolest battle. Like, it is really fucking good. Yeah, but again, I talked with some of these people, and whenever they complain about the show, there's always this thing of like, they say bad writing. They'll like complain like, oh, it's bad writing or whatever, and they won't explain why. And then they'll just bitch about Galadriel and just whine about him, and they'll like complain about Arondir, who's like the black elf, for doing like fucking elf shit. And like, this is what drives me crazy. He is like the most elf of all the characters. And like, they'll complain about him. And I was like, did you watch The Hobbit? Legolas jumped on a bunch of falling rocks. Like, Lord of the Rings is ridiculous. It's fantasy. Just relax. It's fine. So yeah, there's been a lot of this, like, it's been a minefield trying to just enjoy the show, because I'm just like liking it, and you just want to talk with people about how you enjoy the show. And if you go online, it's like opening up a box and all you hear is like, this show isn't exactly what I wanted it to be. And then you're like, oh God, close that right away. You're like, dear Jesus Christ. And so I've stayed offline for this one because it's been a fucking nightmare.
I kind of wish I didn't ask.
So much for the political power hour of HLTB.
There you go. That's what it is.
I kind of expected it. Like, it's actually quite good. Or yeah, it's pretty shit. And then we just moved the fuck onto the game.
You can't. You need the context, man.
I feel like I'm on the other side. I've opened this box and you've gone, ah!
Exactly, because that's what it's been like for me, man. That's been the experience.
You're playing the Lord of Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, which is really good.
Oh yeah,
I played this
gaming.
a while back.
Yeah.
It's great. Yes.
Anyway, there you go, people. If someone wants to talk about the show, I will happily talk with them about it. But anyway, here's the sad part. I was coming into this segment being like, I'm going to be really quick because I don't want to take too long, and we've taken forever. So,
yeah,
Middle-earth:
need
Shadow
a
of
separate
Mordor.
tag on the yeah. Anyway.
Shadow of Mordor is really good. That's all I have to say.
Nice,
Fuck's sake.
It's really good. I'll talk more about it next week. Rick, why don't you tell me what you're playing?
Yes, let's blast through what I've been playing. So I'm going to put what I've most recently started first on this, just because it is an interesting contrast to fucking chicken shoot, whatever it was you were playing. Matt.
Crazy Chicken Extreme. Come on.
Same difference, whatever. I recently on eBay purchased a Wii Zapper with its original pack-in game, Link's Crossbow Training. The Zapper's great. The game's pretty phoned in. What they've basically done is they've taken the assets and the locations from Twilight Princess, and they've made a real bare bones shooting gallery out of them, which is fine. Like, it's only supposed to demonstrate how the Zapper works. And the Zapper is a piece of kit. Like, it feels really premium. Like, it's incredible that the whole package, game, disc, controller and all, went for like £20 when it came out. It's really nice textured plastic. Everything's machined really well. The Wiimote and the nunchuck fit in it perfectly. And there's real thoughtful touches like cable management for the nunchuck cable. It like loops in under the back of the controller and then just comes around and plugs into the Wiimote. So real nice setup. The game's going to be over really quickly. Like, I've played the first 2 stages of 9 in like 15, 20 minutes. So it's one I'll barrel through. Like, it's okay. I don't know that I necessarily recommend it unless you happen to get it with the Zapper. I mainly bought the Zapper for, I've got like a load of light gun games recently that I've picked up. House of the Dead 2 and 3, House of the Dead Overkill, LA Machine Guns, and, you know, that double pack in. I think it's Ghost Squad. There's like a military sort of light gun shooter. The 2 Resident Evil ones they made. There's lots of use the Zapper's going to get. And Link's Crossbow Training is like the lowest rung out of all of that. On that Zelda theme, I have actually played a bit of the Link to the Past. So I've gotten through the first dungeon. Zelda's safe, and I now know who I need to go and speak to progress the story. It's a nice little game. Like, it's weird coming back from the top-down DS entries and from Minish Cap, because this does feel in a few respects like a little bit of a step backwards. But that's just because it came first and it pioneered a lot of the things that they're doing that way. The bindings are a little bit weird as well. So obviously there's 2 buttons less than the SNES, but I don't think the SNES release actually used the shoulder buttons all that much. So you've got like 1 button for your sword, which is B, 1 button for your equipped item, which is A, and then the map is on the left trigger, and the pick up item, throw item, that's mapped to the right shoulder button, which is, I mean, you get used to it, but it's a bit strange. Like, there's a few minutes when you start playing the game where you have to like bend your brain around the way that that's set up, because really I think the item should probably be on R and talk and everything else should be on A, but there's no way of rebinding it, which is a bit annoying. It's fine. Guacamelee 2, I've been playing a lot more of this. Excellent Metroidvania. Better than the first. The humor's still on point. I always am struck by just how well the combat is integrated into the movement in the Guacamelee games. Every power-up that you get both has a combat and a traversal function. So, for example, the first one you get, the uppercut, breaks red blocks, gives you some verticality because you only have a single jump at the start. but obviously you also get to use it in combat and you can build into combos. And the sequel does a really cool thing where there's a returning character who, if you visit him in the hub worlds between stages, will give you challenges for money to give the game an excuse to show you how to combo different moves into each other. Just really well thought out. And the humor in this game is top notch. So the sequel has you in the Mexiverse, the multiverse of Mexicos, and your Juan is the only Juan that survived the final battle of the first game.
Juan?
He is the Juan. He's the only Juan.
Oh, God.
I've shared screenshots on the Discord of like different pop culture things that posters in the background like parody. So the most recent one is there's a character sporting an energy drink and he's got to go fist and he's dressed up like Sonic and he's punching out of the thing. There's one in the early game where it's like He-Man versus Skeletor and there's some like funny stuff. They're just phenomenal games and they so regularly go on sale. They're on all the platforms. I can't recommend them highly enough. I might even go back and play the original on Vita because I think I played it on PC the first time around. Great games. Anyway, I started Resident Evil 2 this month's How Long to Beat the Game. I had a bit of a fight getting it to work because they've gotten rid of the DirectX 11 version of the game. So my poor 960M like budget laptop graphics chip from 2015 technically can run DirectX 12 in the same way that I can technically launch myself at a wall. It's not really advisable. And
But you can, yeah.
So I had to drop the settings way down, just not because it couldn't run it, but because it kept running into fatal errors. It uses like Fidelity Super FX to like upscale the image it's putting out, and that's how it gets the good results. I had to drop that quite low down just to get the whole thing to function. The gameplay underneath is okay. I don't really think this kind of survival horror speaks to me all that much, which is the slight problem with it. And that's not the game's fault. That's just a personal preference thing. But, you know, it's good so far. I think the thing I'm personally going to find quite annoying, in this game, the zombies don't really seem to die. So where my...
Oh, they do.
Sorry?
They do.
Yeah, but they get back up. They keep getting back up.
Bro, you got to blow their heads off.
No, I know. I'm putting like 4 or 5 bullets into a zombie's head, and then it's on the floor. And then I turn around to look at the environment, and they're up again.
You didn't finish him off, man. You got to get that knife out. Slab that motherfucker. He's not dead.
But the knives break.
Not all of them, right? I can't remember in this one if they do. Anyway, sorry, you're not
I think
finishing
they
them,
do,
though.
so-
You got to finish them.
I've been given a boot knife but it's got a durability, and that durability is almost out.
Well, time to find a new one.
Survival
horror!
Anyway, I'm going to persevere with it for now because it's
Fair.
the game of the game. So, you know, but while it is clearly a game of high quality, it's not really vibing with me as yet. Last 2 games, recently started Rhapsody for Nintendo Switch. A lot of games I'm just starting because I've cleared through a load of games that I had ongoing. This is an interesting one. So NIS have been releasing a lot of their classic games as double packs physically on Switch. I bought this double pack because I've really wanted to play La Pucelle for a long time. There was a PSP fan translation that was in the works for a while, but this was like an official localization on newer hardware. So I was like, you know what, I'll buy the pack, I'll get the CD and the art book, and you know, I'll have a good time with it. Rhapsody, on a little website called How Long to Beat, which is great if you're looking for times and how long it might take you to beat a game, has the game Rhapsody at about 10 hours. And it's one of a little bit of interest to me because I remember there was a really, really god-awful DS port of it back in the day. So I thought, hey, I'll give it a go. The tagline for this is a musical adventure, and that is very literal. Like, my character's just broken into song. And she just sung a song about her unrequited love for the prince of her dreams. Do you know what? The story is nice, and it's quite whimsical and charming and sedate. There's also a really, really well-implemented CRT filter, because this is a PlayStation game. And if you play with no filter, like, it's blocky sprite work. But that's because it's designed with the CRT monitor in mind. The filter does a really good job of giving it a better look, a more authentic feel. I'm not normally one to play with those kinds of filters, but it's really, really well done in this instance. The combat seems like it's going to be very, very lackluster, but I think a game like this, at a length like this, the combat's not necessarily why you're here. So far, really good impression, and I'm enjoying this. It's quite a different tone to everything else I've got going on, so it's nice in that respect as well. Final game, I started Shovel Knight for the first time ever. Oh boy, this is good. I'm playing the original sort of Shovel of Hope campaign. I'm about an hour and a half in. I've beaten the first couple of bosses. The game is so tight. Like, the game feel is tuned right in. I will say there have been a couple of moments of like bottomless pit frustration, albeit this game is quite generous with letting you sort of claw your money back if you're smart about your second attempt at an area, and there are, you know, relatively frequent checkpoints to it. It's also worth saying I'm playing this on 3DS. Yacht Club really did a good job of dialing that 3D effect in as well. So, as games of its era often did, there are parallax layers at the back that scroll at different speeds to give the sense of depth. What they've done with the 3D is they've given those depth layers actual three-dimensional depth as well. So it feels like you're playing a diorama. It really does immerse you more in the world, and it makes what is already incredible sprite work pop. I'm having a great time with this one, and I expect to have a great time all the way through. We had a little break in the recording earlier, and I literally, my 3DS is there, pulled out and played for a couple of minutes. And I think that's always a sign of a good game when you're immediately reaching for it. Right, that's me for everything. This episode's going to run long. I think we just need to make peace with that fact at this stage.
Yeah.
Guest episodes, that's how it goes. Speaking of which, Matt, do you want to sort of introduce us again and bring us in on it, what you were thinking with it, what it means for you?
Well, since it's the month of October and Halloween is so close, I think every content creator is obligated to talk about spooky things.
Yes.
And I thought we might as well do that while maybe focusing on phobias we might have in relation to video games. In the terms that maybe there are phobias that you only discovered through video games that you didn't even know you had, or maybe there were video games that you played in your younger years that had such an impression on you that you developed some sort of fear through them, because I certainly do. Or maybe there's just games that really triggered a phobia in an interesting way that might happen. I can start immediately too.
Yeah, go ahead.
As I talked about, like maybe there are games that like spawned a fear in you. I used to have an irrational sort of phobia throughout most of my life of like long hallways. It doesn't make any sense because when I was a young teenager, a very young teenager, I played Fear, the old school like horror shooter game, and that game loved to use like long hallways for like spooky shenanigans because just such a good environment for like building up something and then like throwing it in your face. And because I was so young, I guess that left a hardcore impression on me, and I felt uneasy in hallways in like office buildings, hospitals, whatever. Every time I was in them for like most of my life. It's not really a thing anymore, but it was there for years. And I find it funny in hindsight, honestly. Did anything ever like have an impression like that on you, gaming wise?
I mean, first off, I just kind of get that, like the hallways thing, because now I'm thinking about it more like in horror, and like hallways truly are used so often because you can really like they're like a long hallway is very distorting, right? Like in terms of your perception, because no matter what, like the distance of it always feels either further or closer than you'd imagine. There's always two little kids standing at the end.
yeah.
Right? There's always
exactly.
Actually, that for me, when you were talking about, so I don't think I've ever had a game that's like triggered something. Then again, I don't. Let's be real. I don't really. My memory's not great from like childhood, so if I did, I don't remember. But even you just talking about like the underwater, like the deep underwater game.
Oh god, yeah.
So I know that I have I don't know if it's a phobia. I call it a healthy fear of the ocean because like I grew up next to the ocean and in it all the time. Every like summer, we go into the ocean, we swim, and I still go in the ocean and it's fine. But like the ocean is fucking terrifying. In terms of its power, and then also, and you know what it is? I actually don't think I mind the ocean so much as lakes. Dark lakes, because we would swim in them all the time. They're like pitch black and you can't see anything underneath you. And you have no idea what's under there. And I fucking hate that so much. And
exactly.
Right? Ugh. The idea of playing a game under the water like that, where you can't really see anything until it's like too close to you, that scares the shit out of me. I hate that. I'm like, no thanks. So maybe I should try it out because there's no safer place to scare oneself than in a game. I mean, it's not gonna really hurt you.
Genuinely, since you started talking about the water thing, like I genuinely think I have Phasmophobia, the phobia of like open water or large bodies of water. But it's not relevant in real life because I'm not on a ship. I don't go swimming in the ocean or anything, which I wouldn't like to do anyway. But it gets triggered by video games so goddamn well. Like both of the games I mentioned earlier, both Narcosis, the deep sea VR game, and Grounded got me really going in that sense. Narcosis VR in itself was a nightmare adventure for me because in VR, obviously, it's even more immersive being in these creepy little caves under kilometers of water just pushing down on you with limited oxygen and like weird Japanese spider crabs and cuttlefish and anglerfish like trying to get you. I love this game. I love underwater environments. As much as it freaks me out, I find them amazing, interesting, gorgeous, everything. But I had sequences in that game where I really felt my body react and like it was really exhausting getting through them. But I also appreciate being able to experience them in this safe environment. And what I didn't even expect in Grounded, there's this pond in the garden that you can actually explore with like underwater environments, even with stuff down there. And Thalassophobia is one thing, but also being a little soft, tiny human in a world full of hard-shelled creatures makes it so much worse. I played with my friend Lala, like I said, and honestly, they had to do a lot of things down there in that pond because it messed with me so much. They had to hear my whining for a long time. So shout out to them for dealing with that. But it's just an amazing thing that video games can just have this effect on a human being.
Speaking of, still on the topic of water, like I really got triggered by Abzu.
Oh,
I remember you saying, yeah.
Yeah, because I legit didn't know that I was kind of scared of like deep sea underwater environments until I played Abzu. And then I went to a deep sea underwater dark and a small place in Abzu, and I had to nope out of it, which is kind of interesting because I don't have claustrophobia in particular. I actually like small cozy places to the point that when I was little, if there was a box big enough, I would like hide into the box and be there happily. But for some reason, like anything that is like dark, small, and like cold or like underwater, it just triggers me completely, and I'm like a ball of anxiety at that point. And curiously enough, like the idea of the open ocean doesn't like scare me in a way, or like being underwater and like seeing nothing like for kilometers and kilometers like underwater doesn't scare me. What does scare me is like not having visibility on land in particular.
Oh.
And like I am a scaredy cat and I hate like walking in the dark, and in particular and I was like I had to go to Bournemouth for like a study thing. And the thing is the thing that surprised me when I was there for the first time is that in England, things close down like very early, or like in Bournemouth in particular, things close down like very, very early.
Mhm.
And I was walking down this, not this street, and there was no one, absolutely no one. And I could literally hear my own footsteps. And that scared the shit out of me. Like I began running until I found like any kind of like anything alive. It was like, yeah, there's light. There's finally fucking light here. Oh, there's people. There's someone I know. I am safe from this. So anytime that a game puts me in a situation where I'm either alone, there's either like low visibility, or like I can hear my own footsteps, it just reminds me of that time. It's like, no, nope, nope, nope. Please end this quickly. Please end this quickly. I know I am safe, but for some reason, the fact that I'm hearing my own footsteps in this thing just triggers me.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk that. You're making me think, because I was thinking like that for me doesn't like frighten me as much because I grew up in such a rural town where like literally every single day there's no one around. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'd be walking no matter what, there's no one. But I had this experience that I don't think a lot of us get to experience. But we were growing up, we went to this like party, and it was literally out on an island. And it was where for the first time I experienced like true darkness, in the sense that like I feel like we get used to the idea of like, oh yeah, it's dark out. But like this was an island that had literally no lights on it. And there were no lights for like kilometers around. And so when the sun went down and the moon came up, it was oppressively black, you know? Like it was literally to the point where like I couldn't see, even with the moon, the faint light of the moon. It's like I couldn't see, and it was a very small moon that night too, not even a full moon. Full moon, you're like, yeah, you're good. But like you couldn't see like about a foot in front of you. And it's like one of the more like disturbing moments, because then you hear everything, right? And like you're describing too, Paula, right? This moment of when you start to hear absolutely everything. And when you're on an island, there's a lot of living things on an island, right? And so you would hear stuff, and then you'd look over and you'd just see like two like glowing eyes, and you're like, nah, I don't like that. And so you're just like moving around. And like I feel like games not yet can quite do this very well, because if it's just pure blackness, that kind of sucks. But I think VR, there are some games that could do it very well, right?
I was literally about to say that because I noticed that in Narcosis as well. Because I was recording the footage for my YouTube channel for Let's Play, and I noticed the difference. When you're in VR and actually have the 3D effect, even if it's really dark, you see shapes in the distance and you know something is there and whatever. On a flat 2D plane, many of those things you don't even recognize them.
Yeah.
I think you are right. VR can do a lot of things with like this sort of darkness and limitation.
Right.
And you can't just look away the same way like you can with a screen. And that's always the thing that's going to throw you off with stuff like that. Like, on the one hand, it's a little bit comforting because you can experience that in like a safe way. You know you're not truly in danger. But equally, it's kneecapped because at any moment you can see like a familiar environment around you or whatever, and that cuts the effect right off to a certain extent.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like why? Oh, sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead, Paula.
Like in my case, for example, if I see a very dark screen, and like I'm trying to see what's going on in game, and I can like distinguish anything because it is so dark. It is annoying if I see it on a screen. If
Mhm.
I see it like around me, it becomes scary.
Yeah.
That's why I think VR is like at this point the most kind of ultimate perfection of the horror genre, because like, and why I think you see a lot of horror on there, because again, when I think of films, like I love to watch horror movies, but very rarely does a horror movie like scare me. They'll surprise me at times, right? Like, oh, surprise. Sometimes they'll disturb me, right? Like I find that's more often what happens, is that you see something that you're like, that's just fucked up. Do I feel scared?
Yeah.
Not really. But like video games and VR in particular, even games that aren't horror games, like Half-Life Alyx, like can like scare you in like the stress response at times, because it gets so
Yeah.
intense that you're like, oh fuck, right? Like you had that feeling. And so imagine a game that's attuned for horror. It's like when I played Resident Evil 7 in VR, I've never moved so slowly in a game in my life. I was like,
Yeah, when I played the Paranormal Activity VR game, I had the same thing. Like one step was like 30 minutes of progress. It took a long time. The thing is with VR, I think that you are so immersed in it, but also there are no laws of reality. You cannot expect what happens, and yet it is still around you and in your face. Like that mix of things, that's really brutal.
Yeah, because you're immersed in a world wherein like you lose your logical thinking, right? Because in the
Exactly.
world, you can be like, okay, like for instance, when I'm walking down a scary like street or something, I might be afraid, but I can go, all right, logically, there's no actual monsters. If someone were to attack me, that's one thing. That's frightening. But in a video game, right? It's like, well, there literally could be a monster right there. So you're like, shit. There's no rules here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which I don't know about you all, but I love that feeling. Like for me personally, the feeling of being scared, it's like, I don't know, we talk about like emotions and stuff, and scared is just another one of them. And it's a really fun, gratifying feeling. Like to allow something to frighten you without actual consequence is such a privilege, right? Like to be able to just be like, and it's the roller coaster feeling, right? The like
adrenaline hit, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you get this adrenaline spike, and it can become harder and harder to get. It's like a hard drug, horror, After that first hit, it's just you're chasing that high.
Chase the dragon, yeah.
And it's never the same.
Very true.
I don't know. Any other thoughts on this one? Or what do we think?
To the extent that it hits me, I think body horror is the one. I've been racking my brain while you three have been talking, just trying to think if anything that's hit me. The closest thing I can think is probably Soma.
Fuck yes.
Some of the moments that has with the one that sticks out in my head. Well, two, I suppose, is the early character whose brain's been copied to like a machine. And you have to like put energy through that machine to open a door, and you've got this human voice attached to this robot.
Yeah,
in intense pain, and the way that throws you off. And then there's a character near the end who's like asking you to turn them off, and I suppose it's the that sort of empathic like revulsion at some of the things that it asks of you, and also I suppose Observer does similar things with the sort of melding of man and machine and the inhuman visceral components of that. But I'm not really someone who gravitates towards horror games, so I feel like I'm a pretty poor I'm not well positioned to really contribute to this in the way that you guys have. So one of the perks of the format, you guys can pick up my slack in this regard.
I do not play horror games at all either. And in particular, when I take part of some kind of gameplay in horror games, I am not the one at the controller, so I can close my eyes if things get too spooky. Which, by the way, that's one of the things that really differentiate horror games from horror books or horror movies, especially horror movies. You can close your eyes in horror movies and you get no consequences for it. If you close your eyes while playing a horror game, well, I hope you're ready to redo that spooky section that you were just too scared to look at.
And I think there are a few other bits to dig into on that, and also what we talked about in VR. One of the prompts we've got on here for our show notes is how games compare to other horror mediums. And I think one of the interesting things for me, beyond like the tied-in component of VR and the way that it's a little bit harder to dissociate that you've mentioned there, Paolo, I think the lack of a director's framing is a big factor for horror games as well. I've talked about it on the podcast before in a completely different context. The game Layers of Fear of Bloober Team, who are now remaking Silent Hill. I retired that game because I found it deeply frustrating in the sense that I could tell there were trigger points where I was sort of tripping over the strings of the Puppet Master. And I could see as I hit like lines in the room and gated points, I was triggering certain actions like, oh, okay. And because you have a lot more control over what you're looking at, where you're positioned, the pace that happens at, in some circumstances that can heighten it, like what you guys talked about in terms of VR and feeling that dread and the way that affects the speed you're moving at. The flip side of that is that you don't have a director framing the shot, editing it in such a way that it moves at a pace that holds you with it and causes fear in that way. And I think there are a lot of horror experiences in the medium of video games that suffer for that lack of control over the user's experience of it.
Yeah, it depends what you're going for in horror, right? Like if you're going for atmospheric feelings versus like the thrill ride kind of take on it, which it just sort of depends, you know. I can see merits in all of them, but I do know what you mean. Man, that Silent Hill 2 remake though, I'm intrigued. Silent Hill's come back with a vengeance. The thing is, if Bloober Team is just remaking it, like I sometimes disagree with some of Bloober Team's like artistic choices, but like the games are competent. So like if they're just remaking Silent Hill 2 and they're not fucking with it, it'll be good.
You say that, some of the character models in the trailer look pretty whack.
That's good though. I want Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 shouldn't look good. It shouldn't look right. You shouldn't be in that game.
Good point.
Right? Like they should look fucked. They should make you feel like you're uncanny valley and uncomfortable.
Yes and no. Like that, the human like face rig for the central. I've never played Silent Hill 2. The face rig for the main character like looked awkward. Like the first robots that they made where they're like, oh shit, we can put some silicone on the front of this and we can pretend it's a person. But like they did it once and they were just like, yeah, this is ready for video.
I mean,
and it looks just completely not right. Not in a scary way, just in a what the fuck is that way?
Yeah, uncanny valley.
I see what you're saying, but I'm also so on board. Like, because I'm like, if the whole time that as long as it doesn't take you out of it. But anyway, we'll see. That's just like the a CG cutscene that we got to see. So we'll see. Because they actually do a good job. Like I played their last one, the medium. Models look fine, so I don't know. We'll find out what happens. Should we move on, or what do we think?
I think so, yeah. Unless you guys have got stuff to add, I think I've contributed everything I can to that point.
I think it's time for Guess the Game. Guess the Game.
Yeah.
Welcome to Guess the Game, where the aim of the game is to guess the guess game.
Yeah. Smooth. Beautiful.
Oh my god.
So basically,
tell me it's a while since you've done this without telling me it's a while since you've done this.
Right. Matt's got a game for us, and he's got some completion notes and or reviews, who knows? And we're going to have to guess. And I think he'll tell us the times first, right? Yeah. And then we'll guess based on that.
Yeah. Just a second here.
And the winner will get 1 point towards the score.
All right. I'm giving you the times first.
Okay.
We have a main story of 7 hours. This is the average times. A main story of 7 hours. Main plus extras 8 hours. And the completionist 15 hours.
Okay.
The first 3 notes that I have for you are pretty, vague. So I'm gonna give those to you, a bit quicker. Firstly, we have this wonderful little note. It says, "This game really got inside my head. Very spooky atmosphere and graphics."
Silent Hill?
So you... Yes.
You
No
beat me to
problem,
it.
though. That's no problem, though, because I had a feeling that might be quick, so I have a backup, honestly. That's fine.
Let's do
Though
2.
I would like... Yeah, but I do like... I'm giving you still the full 3 things that I was going to give you, because the next one was saying the worst graphics in history.
Oh, I would have got that for sure.
And the one leading up to that ahead of its time. So I actually find that funny because we just had this conversation about the graphics in Silent Hill, and we have that literally here. One of them saying spooky graphics, the one of them saying worst graphics in history. I find that really interesting.
Nice. Sorry,
Anyway,
I played Silent Hill a little while ago, so like with my partner, so I'm like, I had a feeling it's spooky. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, so here's the bonus game.
Yeah.
This one, I think this one is gonna be harder in general a little bit.
Okay.
So here we go with the times. We have the main story of 11 hours, the main plus extras 13 and a half hours, and completionist 16 and a half hours.
Okay.
The first note is this is actually a review, 6 out of 10, by Johnny No Name. Old school stealth design with gory kills, terrible camera, and overly repetitive gameplay. Making
Is
a
it
single
Manhunt 2?
mistake. Sorry?
Is it Manhunt 2?
It is not Manhunt 2.
Okay, sorry. I interrupted you in the middle of that. I was reading it. Go on.
Making a single mistake can set you back 20 minutes. The story seems interesting, but not worth the redundancy. I'm guessing you don't have strong guesses yet.
Is it Plague Tale?
Nope.
Oh. Old school stealth. Old school stealth.
I can continue with the next one if you want.
Yes, yeah, please do. Yeah.
I think that makes sense, yeah. This one is another review, 6 out of 10 by One Kaneka. Entertaining but not inspiring, has a couple of fun sections, but overall is very repetitive. It feels like a mechanic segment that was dropped from the 3D GTA series and found itself converted into a 12-hour dull experience.
Saints Row?
Nope.
No, that can't be it. Dropped from the GTA. Can you? What was the first part again? The first ones. Can you repeat those first ones? I need to hear them.
The first sentence of this note.
Like just like the first couple ones that you mentioned.
What do you mean? Sorry.
Like, sorry, the
first review. I think. Means,
yeah, sorry, the first review. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Sorry.
The first review. Old school stealth design with gory kills, terrible camera, and overly repetitive gameplay. Making a single mistake can set you back 20 minutes. Story seems interesting, but not worth the redundancy. That was the first one.
And you said Manhunt, right, Rick?
I said Manhunt 2. I take it
Manhunt?
It's not the original Manhunt.
It is Manhunt 1.
I said it first!
We're both having that point. We said that at the same time. We're both having that point.
Hell no, I said Manhunt before you said anything.
No. I said
Oh,
is it
God.
Manhunt as you said Manhunt. Fuck you. We both get that point.
What? No way. I totally said Manhunt. You didn't even think about it.
Fucking
Absolutely. Matt, you're the decider, actually. Do we both get a point, or what's the deal here?
Jesus Christ. Fuck. No, I think Alex is getting this point.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, shit.
You're already ahead. That also makes the game interesting, because now it's 9 for Alex, 9 for Paola, and 14 for Rick. So this makes How Long to Beat.
I mean, it makes it possible for you to both clean sweep it and then tie break it for sure.
Exactly. That's the big question. Thank you, Matt. Those
it
are
would
two
also be
great
the
ones.
biggest controversy in like How Long to
I
Beat
love that you
history.
said Manhunt too, though. That's so great. I really thought you said
Yeah.
I should also get that point because I was basically.
No, you weren't
No,
right. You said
it's
Manhunt
very-
too.
Very different game.
Is it Manhunt? You said Manhunt. We both did it at the same time. So now you get the point.
I said Manhunt before that. I said it's Manhunter.
You're not getting invited back, Matt. I'm not pleased with this.
Yeah, that's fine. I love this. This is good. All right, let's move
Oh
on
my God.
to How Long to Beat the Game, which is
game.
Rick's turn to play. So let's
Yes,
find
it
out.
is. Let's see what we're randomizing this time. So,
Oh, that was fun. There's no way I'm clean sweeping this, so you're gonna win anyway, Rick. But I like it to be more intense.
let's see what we get. Ooh, okay. Mighty Gunvolt Burst is this
Oh.
week's How Long to Beat the Game.
I think I have this
What?
game on. Isn't this the good version of
So-
like the bad one that was? That's so vague. But
This
Good,
is
good
like
description.
it's a sort of OG Mega Man alike that was made as a promo side companion-y game to Gunvolt, but it also features, or rather to Mighty Number 9, but it also features Beck from Gunvolt, and it also features, by the looks of the cover art, one of the girls from Galgun, inexplicably.
Oh, that makes sense. So, Mighty Gunvolt Burst, you said, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Dope.
And so I am looking for the main plus, and 100% completion times worth 1 point each.
Fuck.
I'm also, as a bonus question, going to ask something additional, which I haven't decided yet.
A bonus question.
Yeah, and that bonus question's worth 2 whole points. So,
All right, I think I have my time.
So on the game pages, a game rating is featured. I take it Alex's dog's right on him. I take it her breath is not so good.
It's not that she went like and like shot like snot at my mouth. So it's a great day right now. That should make you feel a little bit better, Rick. Right?
Not as much as I'd hoped it was. But yeah.
Okay, sorry.
The bonus point is going to be the rating for this game on how long to beat. That is a percentage out of 100. That is, as all percentages are, but that's how it's on the page. And so that's how I would like your answers through to me, please.
Okay.
Oops. Sorry,
Rating
Rick.
of the
I
times.
sent one time by itself.
That's fine. You can edit it. It's all good.
I feel like I'm cheating a little bit with this because I'm positive I've like looked at this game like very recently because I think I bought it.
Oh,
If you
of
bought it,
course.
that wasn't the smart move because it's not a great game.
Isn't this the one that's okay?
I mean, it's okay compared to Gunvolt, or rather Mighty Number 9. It's not great.
Yeah, I suppose.
Well,
I thought it was pretty good.
Maybe. Tell me.
Oh, okay. Well, I might change my rating.
There you go.
God damn it! On how long to beat? Did the ratings? They're not perfect, right? They can vary.
They're not perfect. You're saying something on the site is not perfect. That's
No, I mean
As the
like they're
official
not like
podcast.
5/10s. That's what I mean.
It's just in. After the events of this recording, we're looking for a new host.
No, like like they're not perfect decimals, right? Like they're not like 75, 80, 95. Like they can vary, can't they?
It's 1 to 100. It's a flat percentage.
Right. Okay. So they can vary. Okay. Yeah. I couldn't remember. I was
I want it to the nearest percentage point. Let's put it that way.
okay. All right. Well,
Yeah,
I've
I-
submitted them. I feel decently
me too.
okay with it.
3.
Right. So yeah, I've got it from everyone. So, first of all, main time. Alex has put 3 hours. Paula has put 3 hours. Matt has put 4 hours. Main story time is 3 hours.
Oh,
So that's a point each for the two hosts.
I can't believe this.
Main plus, Matt has put 7 hours. Paula's put 5.5 hours. Alex has put 5 hours. And the time is bang on 5.5 hours. So that's point number 2. Point
Those
number 2
half
for
hours.
Paula. Those pesky half hours.
those half hours, man.
Bruh.
I'm out.
And interestingly, so for 100%, Alex and Paula have both put 7.5 hours.
God damn it.
Matt's put 12 hours. The actual completionist time is 8 hours.
Oh,
But that's a point each for Alex and Paula.
Yeah,
Paula could clean sweep this.
she could.
A clean sweep is on the cards. So the percentage rating, Matt has put 75%. Alex has ambitiously put 77%. Paula has put an aggressive 65%.
Ooh.
Oh, and I'm going to tell you that percentage is 78.
Oh.
So Alex
I cannot
would be
believe
there.
this.
So in a photo finish to this round of how long to beat the game,
I mean,
if my
We're
maths are
excited,
right,
Alex, aren't we?
what? Should
if
we
my
do
maths are
another
right-
round? Because like I feel like we're all so close. This feels like it'd be fun to do another one. I mean, I don't really care. I just feel like it might be fun. We don't need to. You can win if you want, Rick. But it might be fun.
let us know in the comments down below.
know.
I'm open to playing
No,
again. I would also
boo.
like to pick a game.
The
but we'll see.
reason though I would be, I'll just give you my like Cliff Notes reason why I think it might be nice. It's just that realistically, if we do pick one, I have a feeling I won't have a lot of time to play a game in November. But if we wait, it would become a December game, and then whatever is picked, I think I could really play a lot. But I will bow to the whims of the team if you would prefer to just, let you win and go with it. But it's just 12, 13, 14. That's like we're all still in competitive range, which is kind of
I'll
unusual
talk you
for
through
this.
my thinking. You almost cheesed your way to a tie break with that travesty of
That wasn't a
guess
travesty.
the
The
game.
listeners know.
God.
Because you won a bonus point last time. So, you know. Yeah, you did.
Did I?
remember?
What for?
You won a bonus point with Tiamat.
Yeah, 1 bonus point for the game that I guessed, not one that
I
someone
guessed
else
a game
guessed with me.
I
but
guessed
I'll
2
get
games
points,
this
aren't
round. I think I did pretty good.
Yeah,
Anyway.
you guessed 1.5 games, if anything.
I don't know. Let us know what you think, folks. Just because I feel like neither of you have really. I mean, Paula hasn't even got to start Resident Evil 2 yet, so.
They need more time to play Resident Evil, I think.
Yeah. Wow, you might be outvoted in a very unfair way since you're winning, and then there's 2 of us.
We'll see.
Yep.
See. Let us know what you'd like to happen in the comments down below, and hey, maybe we'll base it on that. Maybe we won't. We'll see.
But either way, this was very fun, and thank you for coming in again, Matt. You're the first, I think, returning guest.
Heck yeah. Thank you for having me again.
Always a pleasure.
In this extra large episode. Toodaloo, folks!